are joined now by Martin Frank. He covers the Eagles and the NFL for the Delaware News Journal. Martin, how are you this morning?
I'm doing pretty well. How about you?
Good. Martin, we really appreciate your time. We're
No
stuck.
problem.
I say stuck. I'm really not. Dab smack in the middle of practically all of Chiefs Kingdom. I sometimes think people forget that there's another team playing. But on the heels of listening to Sirianni, and we joked here locally all season. Diehard NFL guys always have these long segments. How did a guy who we wondered after every win, was he going to be fired, has his team in the Super Bowl playing as hard as they do rallying?
Yeah, it's kind of remarkable. It's a remarkable story because I remember after week 4, they had their bye week. They just got creamed by Tampa Bay. And then they have a week off and they come back and they barely beat the Browns. And fans were booing. They were chanting, fire Nick. Fire
Hey, he's
Nick.
arguing with fans. It was classic.
Yeah, and then as soon as that game ended, he turned around at some fans who were taunting him all game and started yelling at them. And people thought he was going to get fired coming out of that bye week after week 4, and here he is. They've gone 15-1 ever since, and I think it just shows how much the players respect him, and because they could have easily that week 4 game against Tampa Bay was pretty much as ugly as it gets. They lost 33-16, and it wasn't even that close. And Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown were injured. Lane Johnson didn't play that day, and they could have easily thrown in the towel at that point. Because there were a lot of questions even coming into that season if Sirianni would survive, because there was apparently a rocky relationship with Jalen Hurts, and he turned it around, and he deserves credit for that. I mean, the players kept believing in him, and the system ended up working, and here they are.
So, Martin, I'm glad you brought up that kind of rocky relationship, right? Because I've wondered all year whether or not what the reality of that situation was versus what was talking head show just needing things to talk about. Because for a team that allegedly had a lot of locker room issues, they seem pretty cool now.
Well, even 3 weeks ago, Hurts, it didn't sound like ringing endorsements.
So, how much of that's real?
Well, I mean, it definitely was something at the end of last year. I mean, the way the season ended, they started out 10-1, and then they lost 6 of their last 7 games, including getting creamed again by Tampa Bay in the playoffs. And, there are a lot of questions right then and there. Sirianni would return. Jalen Hurts didn't exactly give him a ringing endorsement after the season ended. And, Sirianni had to fire his coordinators, offensive and defensive. And, they ended up hiring Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio. And, there were questions what the Hurts-Sirianni relationship was. And I think Sirianni going from running the offense like he did his first 3 years to being more of a CEO coach, Hurts dealt a lot more with Kellen Moore and, with collaboration from Sirianni, of course. And it just kind of worked. I mean, it took a little while at the beginning of the season, but once they got their footing, I mean, it's worked pretty well. So, that's one of Sirianni's strengths. He's kind of like a people person. He talks, I heard the clip you guys were playing. He's his real self. I mean, sometimes he gets in fans' faces, sometimes he gets in other coaches' faces, but, I think the players appreciate that. He's not a phony. I mean, what you see is what you get with him, and it worked this year. I mean, they turned it around. They've been, like I said, they've been 15-1 since their bye, and here they are in the Super Bowl.
So it always seems like, this is like the tale of the two quarterbacks, right? Mahomes, hey, in you we trust, the GOAT. If it comes down to it, I'll take Mahomes. Hurts is the consummate but guy. He wins a ton of games. He's taken pretty good care of the football outside of 2023. The city loved him early on. Who is, in your opinion, Jalen Hurts for this franchise?
Yeah, that's a great question because nobody really seems to know. When the Eagles played the Chiefs in the Super Bowl 2 years ago, Hurts had probably one of the best games for any quarterback in the Super Bowl. He threw for 304 yards, ran for 70 more. And, A.J. Brown set a, record for receiving yards in the season. And, all of a sudden, like this year, people are questioning whether the guy can throw. And the reality of the situation is the Eagles got Saquon Barkley, who ran for 2,000 yards. So, like, why would you throw if you don't have to?
Yeah.
But then, there was a game they beat the Carolina Panthers like 22-16 in early December, and Hurts threw for like 108 yards. And after the game, A.J. Brown was kind of upset about that. And, he said the passing needs to improve, and that set off like a week of shockwaves around Philly, basically. And then the next week, Hurts throws for 290 yards against the Steelers, and they crush them. And all of a sudden, all those questions.
Oh, yeah.
So, the thing about Hurts that, and I think Mahomes is a lot like this too, is they do whatever it takes to win. So, like, Hurts never really cares about his stats. So if he has to hand the ball off to Saquon Barkley or run for, like, do the zone read and run for 70 yards himself, as long as the Eagles win, he's fine with that. He doesn't care about throwing 300 yards. He's not going to beat Joe Burrow. And the Eagles' offense isn't built that way anyway. So, this is what's worked for them. And to Hurts' credit, he's adapted. And A.J. Brown has adapted too, and Devontae Smith to some extent as well, to what they have with Saquon Barkley, because he's obviously like the best running back in the NFL. So why would you not use him? You know what I mean?
Yeah, can a guy with Jalen Hurts skill sets, right? When you get busy in the passing game, it's always a chunk play. When you on the ground, it's a chunk play. He runs the ball extremely well. Could a guy with his skill set ever get the "he's a winner" moniker? It always seems like it's the less explosive guys or eye-popping guys that get the he's a winner tag, but he wins a lot of games.
Yeah, he does. I mean, like Mahomes, you go back to 2 years ago when the Chiefs beat the Eagles, it was 38-35, but correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Mahomes only threw for like 180 yards, something like that. So, I mean, but who won the game? The Chiefs, right?
Yep.
So it's this kind of like a similar thing with Hurts. I mean, he's had, if you go back, like ever since that bye week that I keep bringing up, I think Hurts has thrown for 250 yards just maybe 3 times out of those 16 games, but they're 15-1. So that should be your answer right there.
So, Martin, as we kind of look at this matchup, obviously the Chiefs come in with the three-peat on the table and all of this, but the Eagles, I think a lot of people think the Eagles, position by position or maybe even player by player at a lot of spots, are better. Are there any places where you look at Kansas City and obviously quarterback, but you look at their team and you go, this could be a problem for Philadelphia?
Well, I mean, Travis Kelce obviously would be a problem because he's so unique in how defenses cover him. The Eagles have been using a rookie at nickel and Cooper DeJean, who's played great ever since the Eagles put him in the lineup after that bye week.
Sensational draft pick.
Yeah, and but covering a guy like Travis Kelce is a big difference for him. And also, the linebackers. I mean, Zach Bond's got to keep an eye on him as well. They lost Nakobe Dean to a knee injury early in the playoffs, so the guy replacing him, Oren Burks, is a solid veteran, but he's not playing as well as Nakobe Dean did. So, there are areas that the Chiefs can exploit with that, and obviously with Mahomes and Kelce knowing each other like the back of their hands, I mean that's something they're going to try to take advantage of. So I think that's a key area for the Eagles to worry about. Obviously Mahomes and Travis Kelce, and then defense, they got to account for Chris Jones. As good as the Eagles' offensive line is, if they can't create holes for Barkley, I mean, all Barkley needs is a sliver basically, but they still have to create that. And, Chris Jones will be a big factor there as well. So, there are a couple areas that the Eagles have to worry about. But I think to your point, this Eagles team is better than the one 2 years ago that faced the Chiefs, in my opinion. I mean, they have a better overall defense. The offense, obviously, with Barkley is much better than it was 2 years ago, and they have Miles Sanders. So, you know, it's going to be a great game. I'm really excited about it.
Martin, we appreciate your time. I know you've got stuff to get out and get doing as you're covering the Super Bowl. So we appreciate you joining us, and enjoy the game.
Thanks, Martin.
All right. Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.